welcome to the podcast. It's
Thank
good
you,
to
bro.
finally get you on. We've been chatting about this. It's funny, pretty much every time we sit down and have a chat, if you had microphones there, you could probably have a podcast.
Hopefully we can outdo our last few chats because we
Last
end up
few.
going for 2 hours.
Yeah, it was funny. We first met, about 4 months ago now.
Yeah, in person we met, I think it was like November last year. We finally got to catch up, obviously because you were so busy. I was trying to think like how we first connected. I think it was Jace's podcast after I was on or you were on or something.
Yeah, I think you were on. I reached out.
Yeah, we
about
connected through that.
through your story, and then obviously mutual friends, very much running in the same kind of circle. But it wasn't until 4 months ago we actually met in person, and I feel like we almost both needed that interaction somewhat. Obviously, you reached out to me because of the spinal cord injury, and something you've obviously gone through. And I think I'm not even sure. I have to obviously ask you how you felt seeing me come into that situation and still being in it, but also kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. So like I can't remember how, obviously having mutual friends, I heard about your injury straight away, not knowing your level. For me, like I never really ever reach out to anyone, especially with spinal cord injuries, because you want that connection to come from that person, especially with the information that I've got and gone through. But for you, like we already had those chats and stuff like that. And for me, it was just an initial like, hey bro, you need anything, let me know. I didn't know the level of injury. I just heard that you'd broken your neck. A couple of boys messaged me. But yeah, it's scary. And the hardest thing is, it's no matter how heavy the injury is, it's always lonely because you don't know the outcome and you lose the ability of things that we all take it for granted. We take for granted the movement of our bodies and all that stuff. So for me reaching out was just to say, hey, I'm a voice if you need to chat, because not everyone understands. And, I've only ever had one mate that I know before an injury that's had one during being friends. So most people for me was always after that had an injury. The only other person close to that would be Bronte Holland when he broke his neck. So I met Bronte literally, I'd say 2 weeks before he broke his neck at like just a mini 50s race in Frankston, and then we were out partying together. But yeah, it's fucked up. There's no other way of putting it, is there?
Yeah, it's like you say, it's that lonely thing. And I know for myself, like I was purposely isolating myself because I didn't want to see people, because every time I'd see someone, they'd be quite down because obviously it's a shit situation. But I'd see people, I'd be wearing a neck brace, I'd be in pain, and everyone kind of almost babies you in a way. Like, is everything all right? You okay? You doing all this? And I just got to the point where I was like, I don't want to talk to anyone about this. I don't want to see anyone. So self-inflicted, but also I guess good reason to be self-inflicted. And then I guess when you reached out, it's like, I looked at it as like, okay, I can get useful information out of this. You're not just going to go, oh, boo-hoo, you got a shit hand of cards. It's like, okay, this is what you can do now.
Yeah.
And
well, you want to get onto it straight away, regardless of like whether you're a complete sever, whether you're spinal shock. There's so many different levels to it. It's not like the most scariest thing about this injury is no matter how similar your injury is to someone else, it's completely different. So even just to bring up Bronte again, his injury and my injury was so similar. Like almost you could think it was the same MRI, but we were completely different. Like Bronte's hands were way better, but his legs took a lot longer. His pain and temperatures were completely different, where we can delve into that obviously as we get through it. But it's, like I said, it's such a scary thing. But if you can have someone that can kind of relate and say, okay, start massaging your feet straight away, start doing this straight away, just it's small little things, then that can help the outcome of your future. Because like we chatted about last week, you're noticing things still now, even like the temper regulation, like the pains and stuff like that. You're saying like when you sleep on a pillow now, you need certain pillows. It's like people just think that a spinal injury is you lose your legs or arms. No one knows about you can't shit no more, you can't piss no more. And like not everyone, like obviously it didn't affect you in that way.
I had that
long-term.
at the beginning, yeah, but not later on.
And then even like my mate Mitch, he had a really bad spinal injury doing freestyle motocross last year. But his bladder bowel weren't affected, but he lost his use of his legs, which fortunately now he's got to a point where he can walk with orthotics and stuff like that within a year. But, you know, for me, when I broke my neck, I knew no one. I knew nothing about spinal cord injury. My accident was 2000. We didn't even realistically have good internet back then. So it was a very scary time for so many different reasons. But also I never researched my spinal cord injury. I've never wanted to know how bad my injury was or what I wasn't meant to get back, because I felt like the more I knew what I shouldn't have or should have, the more doors they're going to be for my success, for my recovery or outcome. So I never researched anything. I didn't want to know anything, because like I was in a room full of people that were negative, crying, like, you know, you never sleep. I think I've had one full night's sleep in 24 years from my injury, and that was 2 years ago. So
do you know what happened that day to then cause that, or do you know it was
I had a good joint. Totally legal too. It was medicated. I actually do have medicated, but let's put that out there.
Yeah.
No, I honestly, like, even weed, like, doesn't help me sleep. It was just one night. I don't know. I just
had a good night.
If I knew the answer, I'd be doing it every night. I just had one night where I fell asleep and I woke up like a full 8 hours. Like I normally wake up, even if I've had a joint or even if I don't, normally I wake up every 2 hours, because I still, even as mobile as I am, I can't roll in my sleep. I actually physically wake up and have to sit up and turn, and like it's been like that since day one. And that's the thing, like even when I broke my neck, I had to have people turn me every 2 hours because you get bed sores. I had catheter. I had to have a nurse stick a finger in my ass every 2 days to shit. And sometimes I wake up in my own shit. Plus then you get the sweats, then you get the phantom pains. I remember I was having a really, really bad first 2 weeks. And I was on all this different medication, but my legs would be dead straight. But because your brain needs messages, it'll make up messages. This is kind of what I've learned, and for myself personally, doesn't mean it's like this for everyone. But like my messages would be like, your left leg's over that way, your right leg's over that way, someone's twisting your fingers backwards and breaking your fingers, your right knee's been bent in half. So like I was getting insane pain messages because my brain needed that extreme notifications, I guess, because it couldn't handle the fact that it had no connection to my feet. So my brain just made up the worst of the worst pain. Like I described to someone that the pain I went through, if you watch a movie and someone's getting tortured and they're getting all the worst shit done to them, that's what I went through. And I had to teach my brain to be stronger than the pain and to overcome that. So I'd speak to the medical staff. I'm like, what painkillers am I on? Because they're not fucking working. So get them off me because they're scrambling my brain. And they didn't think I'd survive the first 2 weeks with no painkillers. So I had one really cool nurse that just said, oh, just for your information, that's the painkiller one. That's not. So you need certain tablets like blood thinners and stuff, because otherwise you get blood clots because you can't move. You get bed sores really quick because there's no blood flow through your legs. So you have to be naked all the time on a woolen blanket, a woolen blanket type thing.
How was that on your skin as well, just the wool?
My skin actually wasn't too bad. When I hit the road, I don't know how, it must have been when I landed on my neck and then I bounced. I skimmed a bunch of skin off the back of my back. So I only really ever had that, like a hole in my back, and that came back quite quick. And I feel like the reason why that came back so quick is because I had people working on me straight away. I mean, it's a rabbit warren just my first 2 weeks. Like we could literally talk 5 hours about what I went through in the first 2 weeks. But basically what happened was I got my chiropractor in. He had to come in as my snowboard coach because he wasn't allowed to be in as a chiropractor. So I said, just either look like a manager or look like a snowboard coach. But we basically smuggled him in, drew all the curtains around. He never did manipulation, but what he did was he did touch tests. So he'd like touch me on my forehead because that's the only thing I could feel properly. And then he'd touch me on my leg. Okay, I can't feel that. And literally for hours, he'd just square inch by square inch, he'd just touch my head, and then what he'd do is once he found a connection, then he'd get a pinwheel, so it looks like a spur that's on the back of like a cowboy boot, and then he'd roll that and be like, okay, can you feel that? And I'm like, no. And he goes, okay, so you can feel touch sensory, but you can't feel pain sensory there. And he'd get like a hot cloth, but not a burning hot cloth. Okay, can you feel if that's hot or cold? No. Okay, so you don't have temperature there, but you can feel. Okay, well, that's that bit. And then he basically went through my whole body like that. He never did any manipulation. We were just trying to figure out what pathways I had some connection to, and then we worked with that. So to put in context, I don't know if you want me to go through my accident briefly with you guys.
I was going to say that would be a good thing because we've
skipped all that.
Which is fine. But yeah, we'll go through what caused this.
So I had a snowboarding accident June 25th, 2000 at a mountain. I was barely 18 years old, just out of school. I was with my mates. I wanted to do a really big gap jump. I just felt like that. Well, I just had that drive to want to do something big. Originally, we were going to do it across a cat track. So like where the Casporas go, they're cut into the hill. So originally I wanted to just jump one of those. It's fairly safe, but it would be cool footage, cool video, cool photos, sorry. And the night before my accident, I'd planned to go on this side of the mountain. And then later on that night, we had a bunch of rain. And that side of the mountain copped the rain worse. And one of the boys said, go on the other side of the mountain. And there's not as much rain. There's some cat tracks over there. So we were walking up a road, which was a new road. And then I saw, it was pretty big, jump. So it was like quite high, then the road, and then there was a down ramp. Even though it was quite big and looked scary, it was actually safe because it was just basically just dropping off. But when I scouted the down ramp, there was just too much rock and not enough snow cover. I was like, there's no way I can land on that. Like, I'm fucked. So we walked a bit further up, and then I found like a bit of the hill where it sort of dropped away, but it was really good snow cover for a down ramp. But I'd have to set the jump back a fair way back off the road. I think from memory we measured it was anywhere between 75 to 85 feet gap. So most of that was all asphalt. And all my mates are like straight like, don't do it. It's fucking stupid. And I had this one track mind. I was just tunnel vision, like, no, I'm doing this jump. Already made up my mind that day I was doing a big jump. And I was like, for me, I walked it out. I looked at it, spent about half an hour just really thinking about it. Never once did I think I'd come short. Like, I planned to overjump that. And the thing about that is I could overjump that by 10 feet or 100 feet because it used to be an old run. So it was quite a long, steep run. And when they cut the road in, so I knew I could go as far as I wanted. So for me, I was like, worst case scenario, I'm just going to go big and it's going to look sick. And I never ever once thought I'd come short. I've never come short on a jump. Every jump for me, I always planned to overjump. So we started building the jump. And the whole time my mates kept saying, this is fucking stupid. And I'm like, you can either help me or you can go snowboarding. Like, it's cool. I'm doing it regardless. And then some other things happened, which I probably won't bring up, but basically I was given the green light that I could do it. And at 3:20, I couldn't test run the jump where I could actually roll off the jump because it was asphalt. So like I basically had to go as fast as I could and then at the last minute pull out. But then I was also mindful not to do a big deep carve because then I'd stuff my run in. So we soldered down the run to try and harden the snow as much as possible. Like I had the boys for ages just like skimming the snow, so we made it almost like ice. And so as I said, my plan was to hit that thing as hard as I could and just clear the road. But the problem is because I couldn't feel the transition, like in hindsight now, all that stuff, like I realised...
You don't know how much you're going to sink as you hit it with speed. Yeah.
And like I didn't know that like I should have had it just a bit flatter not as much lip. And plus we were kids. Like I was 18. Like you think you know everything at 18, but we were still learning about snowboarding back then. Like we started snowboarding 92, 91, 92. So we're like, I only been snowboarding 7, 8, 10 years or something like that, off and on. And so anyway, when I built the jump, I was like, nah, it feels fine. The running, I know I've got enough speed. Even when I stopped about 10 feet before the jump, I knew in my head, like you can do the maths. And so my mates grabbed me each arm and like slingshot me in. And as I'm approaching, I'm like, okay, board feels good. I'm getting speed. Like calculate quite quickly that okay, I'm going to make it. So I'm good. And as I was prepared, I just remember I went past that point of no return. And that split second, I was like, okay, I'm fucking committed. Like we're hitting this thing. And then the moment I hit the transition from the run-in to the jump, I just felt my board just bend. I've never felt my board bend. It was like I hit a brick wall. And I was like, fuck, I've made this way too short. Like it's too steep, the transition.
And absorbed all your speed.
Yeah, it just took away all my speed, which threw on my heels. I don't know if you've snowboarded before, but if you hit a jump on your heels, it just automatically flips you upside down. And I just lost all my balance. I just wasn't ready. I've never hit a jump and that's happened to me. And so when I hit it, it sort of almost made me do like a hillside turn. So I also washed off speed doing a hillside turn up the lip, and it flipped me upside down with the board. And I just remember, like, I'm going to hit this road. Like I was upside down. I'm just like, fuck, this is going to hurt. And I remember just thinking, just land on your knees and hands and just break your arms and legs. Just don't land on your head. But once I was upside down, I didn't have any way of being able to get my feet underneath me. I just remembered like the whole one in there in the windows. I was just trying my hardest to get my legs underneath me, so I'd just break my legs. Or at least land flat, not on my back. And then it was almost like when I went up, I got to a certain point, and a few mates said I literally just stopped and just went straight down. And I just saw the gutter. I'm like, oh, I'm fucked. And I laugh about it now just because it's, how else do you deal with it really? And I just tucked my head as hard as I could, and I just tried to like army roll to try and absorb my whole idea, which is nuts, and I know you've had plenty of accidents, just time stands still. And what is probably about 2 seconds felt like 2 hours. And so as I've gone to roll, I didn't even have a roll, and I basically just went straight head first into the gutter. I tucked my head. I remember hearing the corner of the gutter and the snow hit my back, so C7 when you lean forward, that bone that pokes out. I just remember hearing that crunch. It was like a packet of chips just crunching. And then when I bounced, my head flung backwards, and that's when it felt like a shotgun went off in my neck. And fortunately, I was awake the whole time. And I could just, that ringing in your ears that you hear, that ding, and then I could hear my mates running and screaming down the hill because they were a fair way, because I was stopping cars on either end because it was a live road too, might I add. So I had a very short window to make this thing happen, so I was committed. And I just, as soon as I could hear my mates, I'm like, don't touch me. Like I've broken my neck, I heard it snap. And so it's very hard to explain without a photo, but I was twisted like a pretzel. And basically my neck, later on we found out, my neck was twisted off my shoulders. And my mate, Luke Trembath, do you know Dingo?
No,
who's in Monster and all that. So Dingo was 14 at the time. My other best mate, Daniel, I don't even think he was 18 at that stage. He might have been barely 18. And then, so I was like the oldest one there. So Daniel was in major shock. My mate who I jumped over, who's in the photo, which I'll show you later on, he was in shock. Everyone, you just watched one of your mates headbutt like land headfirst into a road. So Dingo sat behind me. I said, "You got to hold my head," because like I started going into shock, so my head was shaking. And so he held my head, and the boys just packed in snow. One of the other boys ran to ski center, the ski patrol, which was about a 200-meter run. But I think from memory that they thought it was a car accident because it was on a road. So they were getting like all stuff thinking it was for a car accident, so like the jaws of life and all that stuff. So I had to lay there for about 20 minutes, and I could just feel myself drifting in and out. I was like, just stay awake. And it felt like my spine had popped through my chest, and I can't remember if it was Daniel or Dingo I asked, but I said, can you just touch my chest? And I felt like if they said that they could feel my spine at my chest, I was just going to give up. Like, I felt like I had that choice. If I just fell asleep, I just wouldn't wake back up. And somehow, it took me a long time to get over the guilt of what I put my mates through. That was probably one of the hardest things. To know that I just, in a way, ruined all my mates' lives because I was, some would say selfish, some would say I was just on a mission. I think it was a bit of both. I was selfish to do it and I was tunnel visioned on doing it. And in a way, I dragged all my mates through my broken neck. And so they kept me alive while we waited for medical staff to come down.
What's going through your head when you're laying there? Are you, because obviously you've realised you've got no feeling. You obviously be in an excruciating pain, no feeling. Like, did you have the thought, I'm never going to walk again? Like, my neck's broken? I
heard my neck snap, so I knew I was fucked. I'd broken my back 2 years before that in Switzerland. I landed on a rock back country. So I knew what I'd done. I didn't know to what level because I was too scared to move. But the first, and I've said this before and people take it the wrong way, but I don't mean it in a bad, like, I've never, the most alive I've ever felt was when my body was dying. If that makes sense to you.
I can relate to that, yeah.
Because you don't realize what you have until you can feel your body slipping away. And I was just full of regret. I was like, can't I just go back 2 minutes? Like, 2 minutes ago, I was an 18-year-old kid standing on top of a mountain, and now I've made this ultimately fucking stupid mistake. But also, I was chasing something. I was chasing a goal to not only catapult myself, but also just to challenge myself as well into the next level of my snowboarding. And I remember just saying that wasn't fucking worth it.
Yeah.
And as an 18-year-old kid, like, I had all my mates around me. I've never felt so fucking alone. I've never felt so much fear. I've never felt so much anger towards myself, all while trying to be calm because I knew I couldn't freak out. I didn't have time to cry. I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself externally. I just had this message saying, you're going to be all right. Just stay calm. I remember just before I hit the road, this voice in my head said, we're going to keep you safe. Don't panic. And that's when I hit the road soft because I just knew I have to be soft. If I hit that road hard, I'm going to do more damage. So I had to try and I literally just went limp. Like, okay, this is my fate.
Because almost like letting go in that moment.
I had to let go. I think my body left me for a second too. Like, I just think my whole soul just came out of me as I hit that road.
It's crazy that you say because I can relate so clearly to that. I went through 3 emotions when I had my accident: anger, fear, and then stillness and peace.
Yeah.
And to every extreme of those.
I think the stillness and peace comes from...
There's nothing else to worry about.
Yeah, but the damage is done, but also you and I and so many other athletes in action sport have crashed so many times and have gone through so much heavy shit that most people haven't, that you know you have to stay calm. Because whatever you've got to do, you can't panic, you can't try and get up, you can't scream. Like, I'm sure I was screaming. There's probably a lot of details that my brain has just stopped me from thinking about, but I still remember everything like it was yesterday. But I just knew I had to stay calm. But like you said, the fear, the anger is really hard to try and suppress because you're just like, fuck, you just want to, like, what the fuck have I done? You want to just someone to hold you and go, it's just a dream, and shake you and wake you up, but it's reality.
It feels like a nightmare. Hey?
Yeah. It's like people talk about nightmares like that. For me at that time, that was my worst nightmare. I never thought that would happen in my accidents. Like, I thought I was overshooting it. I've never, ever that's never happened to me ever. And I've done hundreds of thousands of jumps, like Switzerland and all around, not all around Australia, but all around Switzerland. And then just heaps of jumps in Australia and stuff like that. But yeah, so from there, the medical staff came down. My mates told them what happened. And then I remember the ski patrol are amazing. Some of them knew me already because I was a local kid. And then they put me, I said I've snapped my neck, and they put me on the neck brace. I started kind of relaxing a bit. I do also remember there was a time when my mate said I started choking, and Daniel shoved his fingers down my throat. My tongue started like almost not going into my throat, but like sort of coming back across my airways. So he pulled my tongue out of my mouth, and I can't even imagine what that was like, you know.
You don't realize, it's like the selfishness of trying to do something for yourself, but then not thinking about the consequences of the people around you.
Yeah.
Because I had a bad mountain bike accident when I was a lot younger, and knocked myself out, blood coming out of my fucking eye, nose, mouth, everything. And my brother had to turn me over. And imagine turning your brother over, and his face was half gravel rashed off, and he turns me over. I'm out cold, and he looks at me, eyes wide open, and he says, "Blood came out of my eye, my nose, and my mouth."
Which is a bad sign.
All this, yeah.
Out of the eye is probably the worst sign.
Yeah, but imagine seeing that,
Yeah.
and then like I didn't go through that. I was there, but I wasn't present at the time.
Yeah.
Like obviously I had the pain and whatever afterwards, but it's like I never thought about how selfish it was. And I didn't obviously do it deliberately, but it's like for me, and it was just kind of a shitty accident, but it's like by you doing that, you don't understand. It's not just, okay, if you hurt yourself, that's the only problem. It's like, no, if you hurt yourself, you're going to put your friends and people that love you through absolute fucking hell.
Yeah.
And there's nothing they can do either.
Mm.
And they've just got to watch it happen.
And they've got to stay calm for you too, because like, you know, no matter how much we all go through it and see our friends get hurt, like, I don't know, it's just, how do you put it into the words? And like I said before, and like you said, it's regret. You drag someone through something that you don't want to do. And, you know, that was, you're just constantly going through that. And you're like, I have to stay awake for my friends. And so anyway, they put me on the stretcher.
Did your friends move you at all or try?
No, they knew not to move me. I told them I heard my neck snap. I said, I've broken my neck, so don't move me. You're too young for this, but there was an ad back then in like the 90s, and it was basically, there was an ad of a spinal cord injury, and they're like, don't move anyone with a spinal cord injury. And then there was this other one where a girl was in parallel bars and she was in a car accident. It was like a TAC ad. And she was in parallel bars and like, move your legs, Katie, move your legs. It sounds so dumb now, but it was this girl, like it was a rehab, and they were trying to like move her legs. And that vision was in my head, like, stay still and you'll be one day in parallel bars trying to move your legs again. And at that stage, I still didn't even know I had no connection to my legs. And it's so dumb now that, like, I'm not dumb, but I had that message in my head from an ad, from a car accident ad. And so when they put me on the stretcher, because I was wearing all black, but then I had yellow and green boots. And I remember when I could just, I don't know how, because I was kept flat, but I just remember seeing just out of my peripheral, my boots come up. And I said to my mates, have I cut my legs in half? And they're like, why? And I'm like, have they taken my boots off? Because I cannot feel that. And then my arm felt like it was getting pulled off my shoulder, and then it kept dangling off the stretcher. And then the medical staff put my hand back up and it would just slide off. And I thought I'd ripped my shoulder off. I ripped my shoulder out of the socket. And then they're like, okay, Josh, can you just squeeze my fingers? I'm like, so I'm going to break this guy's fingers. Like, I'm showing how strong I am. And he's like, all right, start squeezing. I'm like, I am. And he's like, all right, you can start squeezing now. I'm like, I didn't want to say it out loud. And then I said, I am squeezing. And then he looked at me and my hands just, there was nothing.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew, like, okay, I'm really fucked. Because I kind of knew I was fucked, but I didn't know. You
don't know the extent. And you also, yeah, like, I, again, relate so much to that when they said, squeeze my hands. And, like, I've crashed before, squeeze my hands. You're kind of weak, but you can do it.
The only way you can relate to someone who hasn't been through it is if you bang your elbow and your hand goes numb.
Yeah, but even that's
nothing. It's still nothing.
That's when I think the fear hits you, when it's like, squeeze my hand, something so simple, and you see your hands drop, and you just go. I remember a similar thing. I remember laying there and just saying to myself, like, you're so fucked. like, you are so fucked right now. And I just was like, that's when I was like, this is nightmare shit, like just laying back and
lonely too.
yeah, surrounded by people, and you just, no one can say or do anything in that time. And I guess one thing I kept saying to myself on repeat, and it was like, if I didn't, I'd probably spiral out. But I think, what was it? I was like, don't give up, it gets better. Don't give up, it gets better. And I just kept saying that to myself every time I'd start to spiral out. And it's probably a good thing to say to yourself a lot of the time when you get to a really bad point. But I just remember laying there, and it was the only thing I could kind of do to stop my mind from spiraling out to, like, the thing is, it's like you're all these emotions, but you literally can't move.
No.
So it's like you got nowhere to channel.
You're literally a prisoner in your own body.
Yeah, that anger and that fear, and like, if you see when someone gets really angry, they want to move and punch something, but you can't even do that. You're just stuck.
And it gets worse. No one tells you it gets worse.
Yeah.
It's like from there they took me up to the medical center, and because I was so critically bad, I remember hearing them talking in the background, because I don't know if they knew I was awake or whether I was passed out. I hear them saying, look, this basically, they're like, they didn't say I was fucked, but they said, like, this kid's, he's not going to survive even probably the helicopter. Like, they didn't think I was going to survive that. Because I remember sort of hearing them talk about an ambulance, but like the closest hospital would never have been able to handle my injury. Plus, it was at least a 4-hour drive from an ambulance.
Because it happened at Bulla, didn't it?
Yeah, but it was on a Sunday, and it was opening weekend too. So, I'm sorry, it was first weekend of school holidays. So the mountain was packed. It was a really nice sunny morning, and then after my accident, the clouds rolled in. It was just a horrible whiteout. And they're like, well, we can't even get the helicopter in because they can't, like, it was a whiteout plus wind. So anyway, they basically just said the best option is a helicopter out of here. We're going to have to just find it. Like, hopefully the pilot can land, basically. And they had to gavage me to keep my airways open. So I remember they put the first one down my throat, which wasn't too bad. It sucked, but like I remember them pushing it down, and then they had to put the one down my nose. And I don't know if you've had one, but it's like the thin tube that goes in your nose. So as they're shoving it, obviously your reflexes are to push it back out. So I had to sniff it and just keep sniffing to try and pull it back. And it only moved like each sniff. Excuse me. And every time I sniffed, obviously I'd tense my neck, and then a piece of bone would just I could feel it grinding off my neck. It sounded like sand grinding. And after that, that's when I passed out. Then the next thing, I woke up coming out of the stretcher, completely covered. All I could see was my face, and I could see all my mates, like all my mates were out the front. And then I'm like, why is everyone standing around? There was like thousands of people. I'm like, what's going on? And like, oh, we had to shut the mountain down to let you out. We had to shut the whole run off. So this was the last run to get out of when everyone's finishing their day. It's like to get back into the village. So they had to shut that off. I'm like, I'm not that bad. Like, don't make this about me. I remember saying that, and the pilot's like, you're not moving, mate. Like, we have to get you to the helicopter. And I remember the helicopter flying out. My mate's dad actually had to run his sled in front of it so that they could actually see how to get out, because they had to fly out between two chairlifts as well. So it was just an absolute recipe for disaster. And then they got me out. They got me in the air, and then I passed out from that. Next thing I woke up was landing in Austin Hospital, and my mum, my dad, and I think my auntie was there. And like, I just saw the fear in their eyes, and I just remember saying, I'm so sorry. And mum and dad are basically saying, it's okay, mate. And especially mum was saying, no, it's okay. Like, we'll get through this, mate. We'll get through this. And I remember telling mum and dad, look, and I was 18. I was like, I'm not dating anyone, but like, I've got 3 different girls I've been hanging out with, and sort of not a relationship, you know what I mean? You're 18, just out of school, you're having fun. Yeah. I said, can you make sure that none of these girls come into the hospital at the same time? Because like, I don't want a cat fight. And mum and dad are like, okay, we brought you up better than that, but like, at least that's all he's worried about. Yeah, first concern. And so mum and dad, especially mum, was like, it's okay, we're going to get through this, mate. And then mum turns to the doctor and she says, he's laughing about this. Like, it mustn't be that bad. Like, is he going to get back? And the doctor turned to mum and said, if your son survives the next 3 days, it's a miracle. Like, your son's in shock. Like, if he survives, be grateful. But the son you had is never going to be the same again. And that was sort of how brutally honest they are in there. I get they have to have, they call it duty of care, but I know that they have to cover their ass. They can't say, oh, you're going to walk out, or this is how you're going to be. But they give you it's just black. There's no black and white. There's no grey. It's just black.
I've noticed that it's almost like they want you to try and prove them wrong.
Well, they don't even think they can be proven wrong.
I get it.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, but like you say, they always go to the biggest negative.
Yeah.
And I guess they don't want to say we don't know, but you'd rather I don't know if you'll walk again than you won't walk again.
Well, at that stage, they hadn't even cut me open yet, so they didn't even know to the severity. They just knew that I was paralysed. They'd obviously done a few x-rays on the hill. But, I mean, they don't have the technology that they had back at the proper spinal unit.
That's what I mean, if you don't know.
Yeah. And so that part was a bit grey. I remember waking up, I think it was the morning after they'd done the surgery, 3 days later. I remember a day or two before the surgery, it's a little bit foggy, but I just remember friends coming in and just my mates would just to see what I'd done to my mates and the reality of, like, the last time my friends saw me, I was standing around running. Like, I was full of life. I was a kid that I lived in Switzerland on my own at 15, 16 for 4 months. I went on exchange. I only went there to snowboard. Like, I didn't go there to learn German. I didn't go there to learn a culture. I just wanted to snowboard. So I found a loophole at school and went over to Switzerland in year 11 or 12 for 4 months. And so, like, I was someone that loved being outdoors. I was never a kid that liked being indoors at school. I just felt like, what's the point of being in school? There's a whole world out there. What am I learning here? So, like, I was a very outdoors, did everything kid. So when my mates saw me, that was a massive hit for them. And then it was a massive hit for me because now I'm a prisoner in my own body. I hated being indoors when I could run around and jump out a window. Now I'm stuck. My window is my eyes. Into a reality. I have no vision of my future. Like, what girl's going to want to date me? I'm never going to have kids. I'm never going to travel. I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to do that. I'm like, you would have gone through the same thing. All the nevers pile, and there's not a single bit of positive. Because you can't. How do you see positive in that? And so my first knee-jerk reaction was I woke up after surgery. I've talked about this so many times, but I'll skim through it, but basically the doctors said, you'll never walk again. Like, you've done your ultimate goal. All you action sports people are the same. Like, they were brutal as fuck. And I was an 18-year-old kid at 3:30 in the morning being told your life's over. And so I got them to call mum, and mum came in and straight away she's like, those bastards told you, haven't they? And I said, mum, I can't live like this. And, like, I literally tried to bully my mum into killing me there, and she wouldn't. I'm like, well, you're going to have to drag me out in a paddock and shoot me. Like, I said that to my mum. And now being a parent, I can't imagine what that's like for your child to almost try to bully you into killing them. And then for my mum to turn and say, no, we're going to work every day. And we're going to prove these bastards wrong. And I'm like, fuck, it's easy for you to say, mum. Like, you're the one walking out. Now, in hindsight, I know how hard that would have been for my mum to say that, being a parent.
I remember hearing when you did the Gypsy's Tale podcast, you talked and said what you just said then. And I just wanted to ask you, at what point did you make amends with your mum for asking her to do that?
The next day I woke up and I just had this message: you either take responsibility of what you've done or you be a victim. And that was the next day. So this is the 4th day after my accident. And I knew that the best way for me to go out in dignity is to try my best, but also the best way to help my friends and my family hopefully recover too is to watch me fight. And that's all they wanted, to watch me fight, to try and get my life back. And so that's what I just started doing. By day 4, I was like, fuck it. I did this to myself. Like, it's not as easy as just going, oh, fuck it. But I went through a lot of mental shit on my
it's
own.
a mental war to get
Yeah.
to that ending.
Yeah. And I was just like, I have to take responsibility. This voice in my head said, you have to take responsibility. And then we start the work. And then basically I knew straight away that Western medicine wasn't there to help me. Like, they're very good at mending, but they're not good at healing. They labelled me straight away, you're a C5, C6, C7, T1, complete quadriplegic. And I'm like, well, what the fuck does that mean? Like, oh, you'll never move your arms and legs. You'll never walk again. You'll be bedridden. Hopefully you'll get enough funding to where you can get an electric wheelchair, but a push wheelchair is probably not possible for you because you won't be able to grip. And I was like, fuck. 4 days ago, I was snowboarding with my mates, living up on the mountain, partying, living life. I'd finished school. I graduated school, made mum happy doing that. And now I'm trying to plan on how the fuck I'm going to get in a wheelchair. And
it's a
so
heavy reality shift quite quickly.
it is. And so many people go through it, man. You've gone through it.
Like you
Everyone, that's what pisses me off when we chatted about it. But people go, oh, you're so fortunate. You're so lucky. We're not. So we're more fortunate that we've had some sort of recovery, but none of us are lucky if we have a recovery because there's always something that's going to impede us. And that's where I always...
But I think coming back to that, we're not lucky, but we can be useful.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing.
And we can help others by showing what is possible. And it does help our friends. Like, you know, your friends watch you recover and a little piece of Dean or a little piece of Josh comes back again. Our friends then can start repairing their life and start moving forward because you either lose all your mates or your mates stay stuck with you. I lost probably about 98% of my mates. But to me, I was like, well, I'm only going to lose the people that were dead weight. Plus also I lost mates that, you know, just couldn't handle it. A lot of my family members couldn't handle it. And I just wanted positivity around me. I started straight away, I got my chiropractor in. First thing I was like, the first thing I wanted was photos. I said, I just want photos of me standing. I want photos of my friends. I want photos, every photo I want to be of me smiling, being happy. I want my snowboard back in here. And the doctors are like, why do you want your snowboard in here? And I'm like, well, I want my dirt bike helmet in here too. And they're like, why? And my mum said, try and stop me. So like my mum's walking through emergency and you know what emergency is like. It's not easy. It's like getting into a prison. My mum walks in with my snowboard, my motorbike helmet, my motocross gear, and they're like, why do you want that here? And I say, because I'm stuck in here in a stale environment. I need some sort of stimulation. So I want to feel my snowboard. I want to hear the bindings click. So I used to get my friends, or I used to try and get my hand on and just feel that clicking. So my brain doesn't start dying. I wanted my dirt bike helmet in there so I could smell the dirt. I could smell the fuel and the oil on the helmet. Even though you don't think it does smell like that, when you're in a stale environment, you can smell everything. I started looking into diet. Macca's was a better option in there than anything. So like my family would bring in Macca's because I just wanted to escape anything that was hospital based. I always had my curtains drawn. I didn't want to see anyone. It was bad enough hearing all their monitors going off and hearing the cries. You'd just finally fall asleep at 2 a.m. You'd hear someone screaming and you're laying there naked and you're like, anyone could come in here and rob me. Like, I can't do anything.
You can't. You
Like,
feel
it is scary as fuck to lay there, not being able to even move your arms. Like, not even be able to move anything. And I was like, okay, I need to get myself out of this situation. So now I'm going to start thinking of everything possible that's off the wall that's going to help me. I need to escape my brain first. My mind needs to escape this shithole. And back then, the hospital was fucked. Like, I had mold through the roof. There was holes in the roof. It was cold, like, because it was winter, obviously. I had to be naked the whole time. I couldn't have anything touching my body apart from a sheet and some blankets. And, that's how I first started my rehab, was getting my brain right. I knew I had to get my brain right enough. I knew I had to get a strong mind. And so if someone cried, I said, look, you have to get out of my room. Like, I'm sorry, but like, I can't have tears. If I'm not crying in here, then no one else is crying in here. Like, I don't want anyone feeling sorry for me. Like, I just need positivity, and that's what my friends started coming in. My chiropractor said we need to massage your feet. We need to get those messages, even if you can't feel it. We need to get those messages to your feet. And I'm like, I'm not letting anyone touch my feet. My mates were like, sit up and punch us. Like, the moment you sit up and punch us, we'll stop massaging your feet. Until then, basically shut the fuck up. And that's what I needed.
And you have to say you need that.
You don't want your mates.
You don't want to be babied.
Nah, because that's what, like, you don't want to be, because that's what the hospital does. You literally go back to being a baby. You're not only trying to fight to stay alive, but now you're like, these guys are trying to kill me while I'm in here. Like, one time they left me in a bath and I already had a collapsed lung. And so they left me in a bath because it was a medical emergency and they forgot about me. I was laying in like a little bath with about that much water in it. And I went into shock and caused pneumonia and they couldn't fix me. And so they rang my mum, and mum came in with my mum's friend who was a psychic. And she basically called mum and said, Kay, Josh needs me. And mum's like, Rose, I've just done 14 hours in the hospital. I just need to come home for a bit. She goes, Josh needs me. Mum literally got home, picked up Rose, turned around and came back to the hospital. And they had 4 space blankets on me. They had 4 or 5 towels wrapped around my head and body that had straight out of a dryer. And I was convulsing, and like my mum's like, what the fuck have you done to my child? Like, oh, he's gone into shock. You know, he was left too long in a bath and he was cold. And then straight away Rose came in. My mum literally kicked everyone out. They fucking hated us. But it's basically like, well, you're not going to help us, so we'll do this on our own until we can get out of here. And Rose came in, and I remember she used to always wear big bangles. Like, she was a full-blown psychic. Like, she had all this stuff, the jewelry. And I just remember she came in and she did this stuff around my head, and she got these crystals out, put them on my head. And like, this was all shit I didn't believe in back then. I actually didn't get along with Rose because she'd always tell me that relationships wouldn't work. You'd have these injuries, and I'm like, you're always just telling me shit I don't want to know. And so, but she was the first one I wanted in there. And she did this thing on me for 5 minutes, and within 10 minutes I was back to normal. And I knew straight away from there, okay, Eastern medicine's what's going to help me, not Western medicine, because these dickheads were sitting around me for an hour not knowing what the hell to do. All these blankets and stuff weren't helping. They're not feeding me right. They're not doing any type of therapy. So I just have to start doing all this shit on my own. And that's why we drew the curtains all the time. And that was my escape from everything. And that's just sort of how it started. I knew I had to get my head straight, and that's when that pain stuff happened, where my body was trying to tell me all these different things. So I had to teach my brain how to go, no, that's not what's happening. Your legs are straight, your arms are straight. And I can't remember the time frame, how long it took me. And I was in agony. I'm still in agony to this day. Exactly the same agony I was in back then. I've just taught my brain how to just try not to think about it. But then there was that. I got my legs straight. I could figure out my brain was straight. I'm like, okay, now what do I do? I remember thinking, if I can move my big toe, that's the furthest extremity from my brain, then in theory I should be able to work my way back. And I just remember staring at my big toe, and for 2 weeks straight, and that doesn't sound like long, but when you're in hospital on your own, 2 weeks feels like 3 years just staring at your toe nonstop, not talking to anyone. And after 2 weeks, my big toe flickered. I was like, did I do that? And then I looked at my toe and I was like, oh, I did do that. That's me. Like, I'm doing that. I remember I just started crying. And this surgeon walked in, or there's a doctor or one of the surgeons. The surgeons are actually better. It was the doctors that were way ruder to you.
Yeah.
And he came in and I said, Doc, watch this. And I moved my big toe, and he just said, oh, Josh, that's a spastic response. You'll lose that. I say this in my talks, and then I turned around and I said, well, you're a spastic response, so get the fuck out of my room. I don't need that negativity. And basically from then on, like, I just went off my big toe on my left foot, and then I was like, okay, I can move my big toe, then what else can I do? And then my chiropractor would bend my knees and he'd be like, all right, push, like as if you're pushing something, like try and imagine what you're doing. And I just like, how do you push? Like, I used to get up and walk. I used to snowboard. Like, how the fuck did I do that? It was just such a a natural thing to do that we all take for granted. So like to try and learn that again, I'm like, how did I do that? So then you have to start thinking off the wall of different things like snowboarding, like that feeling of when you pop, and on the dirt bike when you got your feet on the pegs and when you preload. Like, okay, I remember that because I had to learn that when I was older. And that's what I started latching onto. And then my left leg came back, I wouldn't say quick, but it came back within a few months. My right leg took a lot longer. Like, it took way longer. They had to cut. I destroyed so much bone in my neck. What they do is they get a chisel and they cut your hip, and they chisel a big chunk of bone off your hip, turn into paste, and then they rebuild your neck. But because I didn't think I'd walk again, instead of just moving the hip flexor to the side or cutting it and then restitching it, they just cut it, my hip flexor, in half and then just left it. So they never restitched
like,
it.
He's not walking again.
Yeah, he's not walking.
He doesn't need this anyway.
No, just throw that out.
Yeah.
So that's another big reason why I struggle, because I have bad timing between my brain to my feet. So it's like almost like the freeway's jammed up. So like my messages sort of bounce around where the injury is, and then it finally finds a hole and then goes through to the message. I've had x-rays done and MRIs done a few years ago, and the surgeon couldn't believe I even walked in, because he said you have literally 5% message from your brain to your feet. And he goes, it's impossible. I'll go, well, clearly it's not impossible because I've done it. And it's very hard for people to believe me. But if anyone wants to challenge me, and I give it to any surgeon, any doctor in this world, or anyone, look at my MRIs and give me a prognosis of what you think I'm like before you meet me. And it just proves to you that, look, I'm the first one to say not everyone's going to walk from a spinal cord injury. Just because it worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for others. But wouldn't you want to try? And like, I'm still getting shit back 24 years later. Like, I'm still getting feeling back. Like, I felt cold on my leg for the first time in probably about 10 years ago. That came back after 14 years. So there's still things, like, your body's still regenerating. I always tell people it's never too late.
Yeah. It comes back, don't give up, it gets better. And you don't know what that means.
Yeah. And I could literally write a textbook of everything I did and give it to someone with a spinal cord injury. It doesn't mean it's going to work. But you'd rather try and then also loop back to it, because sometimes the first time you try something, it doesn't work, and then you come back to it a year or two later and it works.
It's just having the hope that it will.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I saw you, and one thing you said to me that probably stuck the most was you asked me where I was at with the injury, and I think it had been a couple months at that point. And I told you it's been a couple months, and you said, you're so much further ahead of where most people would be at this time. And until that point, I hadn't thought I'd gone anywhere.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not even close to being healed. Like, I don't think I had temperature at the time. I obviously had lack of feeling, still a lot of pain. And I was like, fuck, I haven't gone anywhere. And then you're like, oh no, you're way further ahead than, because you've obviously met so many people and been in that space, industry, whatever you want to call it. I needed someone to see me that wasn't a doctor going whatever and say, hey, you're doing good.
Yeah.
Because I took that and was like, okay, well, I need to keep going.
And I wouldn't have said it if I didn't mean it too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because you kind of got to be blunt, honest. Like, you got to tell people straight, because that's the biggest thing. And I know you as an athlete would rather someone tell you straight than bullshit you and waste your time. And when I saw you and knowing what you'd done, like, and as I said, like, it's your life. You're not going to feel like it's been the progress that you wanted or the time frame that you wanted. But yeah, it's hard to watch people go through it, but then it's also hard to watch people know how hard they are on themselves. And for you to not understand how far you've come and then to finally figure that out, then almost like a little celebration, which will help you go to that next level. Okay, well, fuck, all right, maybe not be so hard on myself. I'm doing good. Like, even the next time I didn't see you for 3 months after, when I saw you last week, you're like, the difference in just your stability, even your mindset, even watching you build this place. Like, you told me that you wanted to do a studio and start doing podcasts, and then literally the week later you start doing all this, and it's like, you did this with your injury that no one can even understand. Even your closest mates can't really understand what you've done. And I hope you're proud of that, because we have bodies that are in a massive fucking fight that just want to collapse and just fall apart. I'm like that now. Like me doing 10, 12-hour days on my legs in the old job I had, like not even people in my job understood what the fuck I was going through. They just saw a bloke that couldn't walk properly on a job site, you know, and not understanding what it took to get there, but what it also taken me just to stand. And I understand that with you. Like I know that you're fighting shit that no one else understands. I think having that connection with people that understand to a certain level helps all of us with our recovery. And like I'm proud of you how far you've come.
No, I appreciate
and
that.
especially the mental shit, because the mental shit's a lot harder.
Oh, dude.
Like the dark days, the questioning.
Yeah.
Like, am I ever going to be scared about jumping on a bike again, or am I ever going to be scared about even falling?
Yeah.
Am I going to crack my neck and maybe that just tips me over? You know, I went through all that, and then I got to a stage where I got back on my snowboard. I ended up catching a toe edge or a heel edge and landed exactly how I broke my neck again 3 years later. And I was like, oh, I'm not bad. I'm all right. Like, my neck's pretty strong now. But, like, that mental, like, you know, the boys that do tib and fib fractures and stuff like that, how mentally fucking that is for people to get back on their sports. But with a spinal injury, it's so different because you lose so much more. Like, fortunately, like, you know, I'm even getting, I got my bladder and bowel stuff back a lot more now. Still not 100%, but, you know, you don't want to go backwards ever. And so that's the fear base too, to learn you have to still move forward with your life too. You can't be scared of everything. But yeah, I just take my hat off to you, mate, because I tell you what, it's even seeing your footage when you showed me, like, that with me as, oh, fuck, like, it was such a freak accident what you had. And you to get up every day and just go, okay, no, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to make new challenges now. And that's that belief that makes you stronger and gets you stronger mentally and physically as well.
It comes back to, I guess, being a victim of circumstance. And I said a thing to my friend the other day, but they kind of said a similar thing, which is like, oh, you're doing really good and blah, blah, blah. And I thought about it and I said, you can't be a victim too long or else you'll get good at it.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was getting better at it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to cut this shit out. And I think I almost jumped into this too soon. Like, looking back now, if I could do it again, I would have given myself more time. But athlete mindset was like, all right, next thing, I need to have purpose, because I felt like I had no purpose.
Yeah.
I was just
you feel stuck.
Felt like I wasn't doing anything. But looking back, I shouldn't have been doing anything. Like I told you, I got really sick. I got run down. Like, that's the thing. It's like obviously you don't feel fine, but you feel like you've got more in you than you do.
Yeah.
Like, I'd go to the supermarket, and that was like going to the supermarket and buying food. Man, I would sleep like I'd been to the gym for like hours. Like little things like that. And that's also I think we talked about this, regulating your body temperature. Like, I didn't feel heat for probably 3 weeks to a month. I felt no heat in my body. And then talking to you about that as well, it's like you said you didn't sweat for what, a year or something?
I think
like
I
that?
used a sauna every day for a year and didn't sweat for that first year. Like, I had that at 40, 50 degrees, and like I'd come out bone dry after 15, 20 minutes. But after a while it did help, and then I started sweating and regulating, because like I don't think people have any understanding. It's like everyone focuses on you lose your legs and your arms. That's fucked, but that's probably about 30%. It's not even being able to feel your arms properly. Like, a few of my friends, like Christina, she's always burning herself because she can't feel her legs properly. And like, she might leave a coffee cup. Anyone else's legs, you could leave the coffee cup on there for a little bit, but then after a while, you're just like, oh shit, that hurts. Where like Christina's like burn her legs so many times because she can't feel her legs properly. Like, I've got a burn mark on my ankle where back when you could smoke in a nightclub, someone flicked a cigarette and it landed on the crease of my pants. And I didn't know it was burning my leg until one of my mates was like, oh, dude, your leg's on fire, and threw a bourbon and coke over my leg and put it out. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. And I didn't feel it. And the next morning I woke up, and when I sat in the toilet, I hit something and my leg jumped, which normally means that's, like, if my leg jumps like that, there's something painful. I can't feel it, but that's my body telling me there's something wrong. I looked down and there was a giant hole in my leg where the cigarette had been sitting probably for about 2 minutes, just burning a hole in my leg. And I couldn't feel it. But then once I could see it, then my legs jump in and then I was in pain. But it's like there was such a delay in all that stuff, like not being able to have a shower and just feel cold water or hot water like go over you, or have a bath and you don't feel like you're having a bath anymore, or I have to shave my legs every night before bed because the feeling of any type of hair on my legs touching the mattress and the doona feels like I'm being electrocuted. So like every single day before I go to bed, I have to shave my legs because otherwise I don't sleep because my legs just jump all night. I mean, that's just, there's so many layers of what we've gone through. And like, even though you're up and walking, like there's not a chance anyone down the street would think you've had a spinal injury. They'd never know the level of stuff that you're carrying every single day. And that's the scary, lonely part about this injury, that no one knows. Like I can't tell you you're going to get it all back. I don't know. I just know that I can, well, you're already doing it, but I can give people ideas of how we can get breakthroughs. And you just got to never stop. But then, like you said, you didn't expect to get sick and run down while doing something that normally you could probably smash out because you are moving. But then your body reminds you all the time, okay, now we've actually got some shit going wrong here, guys. So like,
yeah, wait a minute.
Yeah, wait a minute, just back it off a bit.
Yeah. One of the things I was going to say when I got home, this one probably hit hardest, but with the temperature thing, I remember I hugged my mum and she just felt cold because I couldn't feel it.
Couldn't feel heat.
And that was like...
And the cold sensation hurts too. Does that do it with you? Like
when I hop in the shower, I couldn't. It was just like stinging.
Yeah.
I compare it to, imagine you sunburn and it's like almost like a tattoo in a way.
Yeah.
It's like you get scratching on...
Because
like,
your body doesn't understand, so it just gives you some sort of message. And that's what I mean. Like you literally have to train your mind so strong that you've got to undo messages in your head that your brain is fixated on. That's it. So there's another part of your brain that's like, no, that's not it. This is what we've got to do. And I lost that for a while, even just believing in myself when I was in the industry that I was in with the construction industry, because for so long I just felt like people just looked at me for my injury, not for my worth of what it took me to get to that spot. But then you'll have other blokes who are like, man, so many people were just sitting on the couch just milking it off Centrelink. But you're here in 5-degree weather in the middle of winter, walking down scaffold at 5 o'clock in the morning, like that's fucking sick. And you got other people going, what do you, like, you useless, get out of my way and shit like that. So after a while, like your brain starts going, forgetting all the shit that you fought. And that's when I went through the dark stuff, because I went through, the marriage breakup, my brother dying, like so many other things that I never really, and we were talking about the other day, like all this shit that I was going through was also affecting my body and it was affecting my mind. And, like when your mind's not feeling great, your body starts collapsing. And there might be times when your mind's run down, it'll show through your body. And that's what this that's what this injury does to us, because nothing's in sync anymore. There's always going to be something that's going to remind us that we've got a spinal injury, no matter how good we are. Whether you can do a 100-meter race and beat most of your mates, there's going to be days where your body's going to go, oh, fuck. But it's not about scaring someone. It's about being aware of it, and to know that doesn't mean that that's how you're going to be from now on. It's just, okay, how do we fix this? How do we work through this? And, it took me a long time to get my head straight to where even I can do a podcast, because I stopped believing in myself so much, because I had so much outside noise that I started listening to that. And then what happened was I started listening to that. Then my body started listening to my brain. And then it all unraveled, where like I was literally crawling to my car to get to work at 4:35 in the morning. And I'd get home and I'd fall out of the car and crawl back into the house, because my body was like, okay, we're home. We can relax now. We haven't got people watching us. Let's fall apart. And I didn't realize that wasn't normal. To let yourself go through that, until I decided one day, what am I doing? I'm missing all this time with my son. I'm in a place that I'm not always feeling like I'm welcomed. I've gone through all this shit for what? To feel like a selfless person. And that's when I've jumped so far ahead of my life. But like, that's why I made the move up here, because I I knew that Queensland was going to give me a positive life that my son and I needed, with everything that my boy's gone through, and then also what everything I've gone through. And we chatted about it the other day. Like, there's so many people up here that are massive dreamers, but they're also creators and supported people, and people just want to help. And I find that that's where Goldie has a lot of that stuff. And, you know, I'm just so grateful that I ended up renting a house right next door to someone that ends up, she's been an incredible friend to not just me, but she's been incredible support to my son, but she's also helped me now elevate myself to that next level of believing in myself. And now I'm believing in myself again. My body's starting to
Believe in itself.
Again, and my walking's getting better again.
I was gonna say, do you feel like your identity became somewhat of, obviously, this person that was very vocal about helping others, and in doing that, you obviously have to have the resume of, I went through it, but then by having that resume, it kind of, your identity is based around someone with the injury, so it's like you need to show up as the person with the injury to help the people that are also going through it. But do you find that's almost a double-edged sword of, you're not
just the injury,
but you're not forgetting it? Like with me, like I was going to post something about feeling like I'm coming out the other side, but I almost don't want to post about it because I want to forget it.
Yeah.
But then also I know how useful me showing someone, like, it's like, I went through this shit and now I'm back to here.
Yep.
So whatever you're going through, you can go through that and then you can get to where you want to go. And that's what you've obviously done with so many people. But in doing that, you're almost hanging on to that injured person in a way. Did you find that was a hard thing?
Yeah, I think because you tell your story so many times, you just stay stuck.
Yeah.
And that's a big reason why I stopped doing my public speaking and keynote speaking. After Bronte was really the last person I don't want to say mentored, because I just felt like we were just mates that we hung out and we just talked like this. I gave him ideas and he helped me just as much as I helped him. But the passing of Bronte really stopped me from wanting to go through that again, because I just felt like I was done with it all, because Bronte and his family were probably one of the very rare family that actually stayed in, or I already knew them partly, but then obviously through the motorbike industry I knew them and became quite close with them. But a lot of people, like, I'd help mentor, and I'd be getting phone calls at 3:00 in the morning from their parents frantic in the hospital. I'd take that phone call, and then it was almost like once they got enough information out of me, like the phones went quiet, there was no thank yous. And I don't do it for money, I don't do it for thank yous, I do it because I know what it's like to be alone in that hospital bed with no answers and just guesswork. Where if I can help people in some way or another get some sort of change, then it's all worth what I've gone through. But the whole identity thing was, I was just sick of just being known as Josh Wood, who broke his neck and learned to walk again. Because also what comes with that is people go, oh, you're never as bad as what you say you were. And then you almost start having to prove yourself to people. And I got so sick of having to feel like I had to prove that I was really that bad, because people only see me for how I am now. Back then, we didn't have iPhones, and we didn't have... I hated having cameras near me. I've literally got 3 photos of me in a wheelchair, and that's it. I've got a few photos of me in hospital. In hindsight, I wish I had way more. I wish I hadn't pushed everyone away from taking photos and videos of my recovery. I hated people filming me in physios and stuff like that. Now, in hindsight, I wish I had that. And I always tell people... The first few things I tell people with a spinal cord injury is raise money. Because even if you've got TAC, even if you've got NDIS and all that stuff, like, this injury is the most expensive thing your whole family will go through. It cost my mum $1.8 million to get me to where I am. Just rehab. And just doing everything she could possibly to get me back to where I am. So the first thing I always say is, I don't even talk about walking until later on. I say, all right, the best thing to do right now is fundraise, because you're going to need the money. And they go, the first thing is, oh, I feel bad about fundraising. I said, I know, because I would too. But you've got a lot of friends and family and loved ones that feel really fucking useless because they're seeing you in this position. So if them giving you a bit of money is going to help you, it also helps them in a sort of a way, because I know what it's like on the other side, where you feel useless not being able to help someone. And it's not about money grabbing, it's about investment for your future, because there's a really good chance that you might get to a point where you're going to crash. And if you've got nothing to support you in that crash, who knows if you're going to even survive that. And then I start talking a little bit about, okay, how do you start making connections to your body? Let's see what is there and what's not there and stuff like that. And it's a very slippery slope. And I got to a point where it was just my identity was that. And that's why I walked away from, no pun intended, but that's why I walked away from spinal cord injury for a long time, because like I was constantly being ridiculed because of my recovery, which is fucked. Like my mum walked across America to raise money for spinal cord injury basically on her own for 6 months every single day. And she got ridiculed on social media. People were bagging my mum out because she was walking across America on her own to try and raise money for other families. And she had 1 day off in 6 months. And if it was raining, she'd walk around the shopping centre for 40 kilometres a day because she made a pact that she'd do that every single day. So it's like, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't with so many things. And I got to a point where I was so burnt out from not only just telling my story, but being ridiculed and being told that I was never as bad as what I was. Like, I shouldn't have to prove myself. It's even ridiculous to say that out loud. And also I wanted a new challenge. And once my son was born, he gave me a fire to like, I needed to make consistent money. And that's where I was like, everyone said, don't get into earth moving. I was like, fuck, I want to try earth moving. So I did a full course. I don't even know how I lasted the whole course because I'd never done anything full time. I got into that. Then my wife left, and so I had to deal with that. Still never missed a day of work. Then I had my son a lot, plus I was balancing work, and then I knew I had to work. So then I was fortunate enough to get the job that I had. Yeah,
let's talk about your son for a second, because I want
to... Little mad dog.
I was going to say, what is... I guess, what does AJ mean to you? And I guess when he came into your life, what was that like? Because I know we touched on before.
You want me to cry, don't you? You need tears.
No, but I guess
honestly, like,
when you said you were laying on the ground there and you're like, I'm never going to...
Well, you think your life's done. You for one, you don't think you're going to love yourself again. Well, no, not even love yourself. You're never going to like yourself again because your body is never going to be the same regardless. 2, no one's going to... You're 18, you're never going to have a future. And 3... the chances of you having a child, especially natural, are next to you're not given that chance. And so all of us, I don't know, I'm sure you're similar. Even at a young age, I was like, I can't wait to have a son so I can do all this cool shit with him, or a daughter. Like for me as a young kid, even at 18, I had that in my head. Like, I can't wait to travel with my kid. And then when you lay in hospital, and you're like, I've just thrown away not only that, but like, how am I ever going to have a kid? And so when my wife and I, at the time, we were trying to have a child, we could do it naturally, but it wasn't happening. And then the pressure happens after a few months. You're like, okay, well, it's not happening. Like, is it me or is it you? And then we just decided, fuck it, let's just not think about it. And then one day she came to me and I was in the couch and she had this box and I opened it up and it was a test thing and it said that she was pregnant. And I was like... fuck, okay, now it's almost like, at that stage, it didn't really hit me I was going to have a kid. Obviously, you're going to have a kid, but then you have the fear of, are you going to lose that child while it's growing? Like, there's so many different fear factors when your partner falls pregnant. And then when you hold your child for the first time, it didn't really hit me until I feel like it was hard because I couldn't walk around with AJ and pat his bum and settle him because like I had the walking stick, and plus I never wanted to drop him either. So that was a hard thing, was to detach my own ego and know that I could still do shit as a dad. But every time I look at that kid, he just, all the scary, dark, lonely nights, not knowing what I had in my future, losing friends, losing family, losing realistically the best part of my life, being 18 to, when was AJ born? Like I was probably about 30 odd years old, 30. I'm not good at maths. I'm struggling grade 3 maths at the moment, so don't even try and get me, but I'm 42, he's 8, so let's just figure that out. Anyway, So I was about 32, 33 when he was born, 34, whatever. That's when I started living, when I had my kid. And then when he was old enough so I could have him around, just him and I. So his mum and I separated when he was about 2.5, so pretty young, but he was at that fun age where like we're going to the skate parks, we're going to the BMX tracks. Like he picked up, he was on one of those little push came up bikes at like 6 months old or 7 months old. He was on a balance bike at like 10 months old. I think he started walking at 10 or 11 months old. He was a fucking nutcase, man. He just jumped off. But then you have that flip side where you're just like, fuck, I know what I could be doing with this kid if I hadn't have had this accident. And then you got to remind yourself, if I didn't have this accident, I wouldn't have that kid. The hardest part at the start was like you'd go to like the BMX track or I'd go to the motocross track and I can't run to my kid if he comes off. So I had to teach my son at a very young age how to start a bike before most kids, because most parents can just run to their kid, pick them up, start the bike for them. You okay, mate? Pick you up, or your daughter or whatever, put them on the bike, and I can't do that. Like my kid falls off at the other end of the track. Like it's going to take me a while to get to him if I'm on my own. So it took a while to get to that point, but he just makes it all worth it. And I look at that kid with so much pride, and I love seeing him with all the boys. Like some of my favorite things is just him hanging out with the boys, because they're doing shit with him that I wish I could do. But I see so many dads up. The one thing I love about Queensland is that so many parents are in their kids' lives so much more. And when I was in that job making, like I'd never made six figures. I was on a disability pension for most of my life. Like I did my talks, but like, you know, realistically in Australia, like I wasn't making enough money to survive off just my talks. I always had my pension, which is realistically fuck all. And then when I had this job where I was making money that I never imagined I could make, I was depressed because I was missing out on all this time. And then people are like, oh, you got to work, you got to do this. I'm like, yeah, but I also know what it's like to lose everything. And we talked about it the other day. Money means absolutely fucking nothing when you have a spinal cord injury, apart from needing it to try and get better. But
in that moment,
like the biggest wake up call is knowing that what you took for granted is gone, and that's the movement of your body. You see so many people complain about how hard their fucking life is, and realistically, like, just sit back and have a look at it. If you can get out of bed, brush your teeth, shower yourself, chuck your socks on, make your own brekkie, run downstairs, go to work, drive your car, get out of your car, jump on a plane, just piss wherever you want. Oh, you need to have a shit? Oh, I can just go have a shit. You know, you literally, as an able-bodied person, there's not much you have to think about. And that's not me being harsh, but as a spinal cord injury person and also someone now, I'm sort of stuck in the middle where I've spinal cord injury, kind of, I don't say normal because, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it really puts everything in perspective. And when I was sitting there at my job, I was like, I'm fucking done. Like, I'll rather be broke and stressed than have money and be depressed. And I'd never had depression. Like, even when I went through my spinal injury, I never had depression. And what gave me depression was being around, it wasn't a lot of people, but it was enough to make me feel like I wasn't worth much. While this little boy at home thought I was worth everything. Like, why am I hanging out with this? And that's where I was like, fuck it. I'm packing my van. I'm going to shove as much shit in my van, and I'm going to go to Queensland with my boy. And I'm going to start a new life, not knowing anything. I know I had friends up here. We don't have family, but I just knew that there was something more up here. And then some of my biggest, proudest moments is just watching him with the boys and watching the boys with him and interacting with him. Like, even I've got the video of him and Jo in the car together, and they're just like bopping around and just having fun. I'm just like, it's so sick to see that connection. And like when he's down with Toppy and Harry and all that at 50, 60, and just watching the boys interact with him and him watching the boys learn and watch them go through those levels, it teaches him shit that I can't teach. And that's why I just love watching him with all the boys. Like when he goes out to Jake Masters at Area 51 for the Area 51 comp, you're like, hey, I don't see him. He's just out there doing his thing. Next thing, my kid's doing a burnout with Harry and the boys and south in that, and like that's sick. Like I want to give him a life where he knows there's so much life out there, and he struggles at school because he's this kid that's kind of lived. I think he's lived a cool life. I know that if I didn't have this injury, he'd be living a fucking, like, we would be gone, man. Like, I see so many parents that travel the world and homeschool their kids and they just are on the road and they're exploring. That's what we should all be doing. And he gives me that fight to have that life because, and at the moment I'm kind of there a little bit because I get to do that with you boys and he gets to hang out with everyone. And it's not about hanging out with famous athletes. It's just hanging out with cool people that are good to him. And like even just my normal mates that don't even do those sports, just watching him have connections with my mates and like learning from them and sort of doing cool shit with them. But then him and I do cool shit. Like we go to the track now by ourselves all the time. And now I've got an electric scooter so I can get to him like an off-road electric scooter until like the battery bounces off because I've got to go over dirt. But like, you know, we find ways now. Like, you know, I got really hard on myself because I couldn't be the dad I know I would have been. But I need to focus on the dad that I am and that I can be. And he's made me such a better person, man. And I just love watching, even through his Instagram and my Instagram, I have so many parents that contacted me and they say, oh, I just love the life you give him. I'm like, yeah, but shouldn't this be normal? We just get stuck in this rut of how we're controlled or how we're told how we should be. And I said it to you, man, like I've never been so broke in my life. I've never been so happy because I've found ways to still have fun without needing all that money that I was making. Like, man, I was making money. I was like, oh, you want a new dirt bike this week? We're getting a new dirt bike. Like I literally had a post yesterday when I brought him his first factory 50 and I walked in there and we brought it cash and, you know, like that was cool, but like, now I'm making more meaningful memories with him and like just going down to the track with him and just watching him grind out or taking him, he's learning rugby and stuff like that. It's just, every time I watch that kid, I just have so much pride and it also helps me deal with what I went through and it makes it all worth it. And yeah, I don't know how I didn't cry yet, but it's, I just have so much pride in just to be a dad, like to hear that come out of a little dude's mouth and I'm like, mate, like I know it's going to be probably hard at school now because people will see dad and how he is on the walking stick and he's like, I don't care, I'm proud of you, dad, I don't care about your walking stick. Like he's one of the only people I've had in my life where I just truly know that's unconditional real love. And that's probably a big reason why I've stopped talking to certain mates because I don't want to be around people I have to question myself with when I've had someone like my son that like he just wants to be around me and he loves me more than I love myself. And that's teaching me so much I want to be the best dad possible for this kid because he's given me the best version of himself to me. And like I'm learning so much from this 8-year-old and I know the boys do in certain ways too. Like I remember Harry was having a really shit day trying a new trick and we turned up to 50, 60 and AJ's hand and we go, Harry, what's up? And AJ doesn't know Harry's having a shit time. And I remember Harry came and goes, man, that's all I needed. Just to see that happy little kid come in and boost. Like there's so much shit. We're all going through so much shit these days with so many different things and life's fucking hard on everyone financially and traveling and competitions and all that shit that sometimes just a little kid coming in and just having no ego, no reason to want to be around you other than just you make them happy and they want to make you happy. It just changes everything.
I think it brings out in us why we started doing the thing anyway.
Yeah, we all forget. You know, I forget why I train so hard sometimes. He just reminds me to be a better person too. And, you know, I'm still trying, like my road rage has dropped heaps since I moved to Goldie and leaving Melbourne. My road rage was bad in Melbourne, but, you know, like even now, like I was catching myself out being really angry and just really stressed being up here because, you know, I'm still on my disability pension and my mum's helping me pay rent. And, you know, most weeks I don't have any money for my last week. And then I look at him and I'm like, we're here for a reason. We're going to keep fighting. I need to be a better dad. Like I need to get my headspace right. It's a positive shift that I've had with him. And I've learnt so much from that little dude. And Yeah, fucking need to bring him on a podcast.
You can come
He'll ask you every hard question, like what's your favourite toothbrush and your favourite colour.
He's welcome anytime. I was gonna say, because you said before, like you felt like you gave up on yourself, and it's hard for someone to get on a podcast or do a public, like speak in a public setting and tell people not to give up on themselves when you kind of feel like that's exactly what you've done. But you said now that that's something that you've changed and that you are more yourself again, and you are seeing positive impacts and you are kind of going in the right direction again. Do you find, obviously you've doing this podcast and you did one with Ality the other day, are you going to try and do more like speaking and more and get back into that path?
Yeah, so my mum, Al, for the last 2 years has been saying, Woody, you got to get your book back out. You got to do podcasts. You got to do your talks again. And I'm like, yeah, but how the fuck do I motivate people? And because I don't want to be that fake, I hate the term motivational speaker, but just like that fake speaker that gets them to be you, be the best you, when I'm at home going, I fucking hate myself. You know, I can't be that kind of person. I can't come onto a podcast and chat to you about all this shit if I don't believe in myself. And so I was going through some shit, and then over Christmas we went back to my cabin. I've got a cabin on the Murray River in Bundalong, and that's sort of like my backup plan if everything turned to shit up here. And I went back there and I was like, you know, it's so easy. I don't have to pay rent here. You know, I've got all this, I've got friends down here, like it, but then there's not, like, it's sick for summer, but then realistically autumn, winter, spring, it's like that's a lot of the year where there's not a lot to do. And that's not bagging Bundy, but it's, at the end of the day, it's a country town.
Yeah.
And so originally I was coming back here to just go, all right, let's just suss if I can make this happen. Otherwise I'll go back to Bundalong. I'll save some money. I'll save enough money to go to Bali for a couple of months with him. I can get a cheap villa over there. I can live fairly cheap over there, just him and I, and we'll just go to Bali for a little bit, because that's originally what my original plan was, to do that before we came to Goldie. And then when I came back up here, my neighbour Chrissy, so she's sort of like a psychic medium, and she does energy healing, but she's only really starting to figure out how powerful she is. Anyway, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I've got this thing called a chi machine. So you put your legs on it and it shakes you side to side, and it gets your body to like almost become like snake-like. It gets your body to be in sync with itself. And as I was on that, she's like, oh, can I just do a little bit of work on you? She's never done that stuff on me ever before. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. And she started working on me, and she knew the headspace, because we're next door neighbours, but we're in a flat. So we're basically, our walls are butted up, and she's always over at ours. AJ's is always at her house. Like, even he's had a few sleepovers at hers when, you know, just to give him some space, because we're always together. And so she knows a lot of my mental shit I've gone through. Like, I've opened up to her about a lot of the stuff. So she was doing this work on me, and then the next day, for the first time in probably 5 to 8 years, I had clarity in my mind. I could actually see and think straight. And I've had so much noise and fog and static in my brain for so long, and just a lot of just questioning myself, and really, are you who you thought you were all these years? And, you know, just some really dark shit that I've never had in my own head. AJ went through some shit when he was younger that he was dealing through as well, in the other house that he was in part-time, which he ended up telling me about a lot of it. And so that was another thing. It was like a real dark thing that I was going through in my head. Like, didn't I do enough as my child to protect my kid? And that was probably the hardest thing for me to deal with, because I can deal with my own shit, but to deal with something that is my little baby, because no matter, he'll be 20, mate, and he'll still be my baby. He'll be towering over me, probably carrying me into a wheelchair as an invalid, but he'll be still my baby. And that took me to some pretty dark headspaces. So when Chrissy was working on me, and I woke up the next day and I had this fucking self-belief, like, okay, I think I can do it again. Like, I haven't come this far just to come this far. You would have heard that plenty of times other people say it. And Al had been trying to just fire me up to get my story back out there again. And she's like, come on our podcast. Like, I'm like, yeah, I will. And then, like, it didn't happen. And, like, it was always the timing stuff. And I was talking to mum, and mum's like, Josh, you know, it's not just, because I said, I'm over it being just about my injury. Like, I'm a dad. And I sort of briefly touched on it before, but like through AJ's Instagram and my Instagram, I have so many parents, single parents, contact me like, I love the life you live and I love what you do for your son. And there's so many dads that have had their kids used against them because of some bitter ex that they haven't been able to see their kid for 2-3 years. And they're like, you give me hope that one day when I get to connect with my kid again, I'm going to get to have what you have with your son. And I don't take for granted what I have with my son. And that's why I share so much shit on Instagram, is because he gives me so much light that I hope that what I go through with him gives other people light. And I have so many single mums write to me saying, I just love watching a father be in their kid's life so much and be so present. And it felt so long, so foreign for me to go, who the fuck doesn't want to be? Why would you have a kid if you don't want to spend every minute with them, if you don't want to learn from them, if you don't want to try and teach them, if you don't want to, like, so many parents are just so like, oh fuck, the terrible twos, terrible threes. Oh, my kid did this. They don't fucking listen. I go, they're 3, bro. Like, they're learning. Like, dump your kid into a school. And like, the only reason why he's in school at the moment was because I wanted him to connect with new kids up here, and I needed time to figure out myself too and try and get some sort of work. Figure out whether I didn't want to go back into earth moving. I wanted to get back into my talks. I want to do my book again, but I had to get my head straight first. I wanted to get back into rehab, but I had to get the NDIS stuff going. So I couldn't do that if I was homeschooling him full time on my own. But like, I like putting us out there because I get so many amazing messages of hope from other people. Like, it's made me want to be in my kid's life more. I'll have some days where I'm like, fuck it, I miss my kid. I'm just going to drag him out this track. And I'll literally go, all right, AJ's got motocross training today. I'm sorry, like, they had to shift it. It's cost me $200. Like, I got it. Like, I can't afford not to do it. And he'll be like, what are we doing today, Dad? We going motocross training? I go, yeah, mate, you're going for a ride. The bike's in the van. And like, that's the shit they remember. And I remember I talked about it in the talk once. And I said, you know, we got to live our lives a little bit more like, not so planned, and just like, fuck it, let's just do this. And one day I was doing the talk and I'm like, I don't say just quit your job, but like, it's kind of good to be random now and then. And this dad said to me, he's like, man, I was driving, he was in Cronulla, and he's like, I was driving my kids to school, and I was like, fuck it, boys, we're going surfing today. I called into work because he's his own boss. And so he called his staff and said, look, I'm not coming in today. Called the school and said, oh, look, my kids aren't feeling good. Like, they're going to be at home. And then he just turned around, went straight home, grabbed the surfboards, and they went surfing all day. And I'm like,
I remember that forever.
You don't need money. You just need moments like that. That's what your kids are going to remember. And then they pass it on to their kids when they have kids. And also, you share that stuff. It also motivates other people to go, I need to be more present with my kid. And, you know, like, I took a massive risk coming up here. Lucky I've got the support of my auntie and my mum. And, you know, AJ's a jet setter. He's flown more in the last 9 months than I have in 9 years. But, you know, he knows like all the Virgin stuff. Like, he knows how to run it. But like, you know, he goes and visits his mum once a month and stuff like that. And on school holidays, he'll go down there, and like, just watching that kid grow and evolve so much. And it was hard because when he started the second school, the new school, like, he was sitting there and he's a full-on kid. Like, he's pretty wide open 24/7. And to watch him head down completely emo, I'm like, fuck, have I done the right thing? Like, we don't have family up here. Like, he doesn't have his mum. He doesn't have my mum. He doesn't have his mates that he had at school. And I'm like, but we came here for a reason. So we can't just focus on that. And then within 2 weeks, like, he started making friends. He skipped a year level. So he's in grade 3 now instead of grade 2. Because I felt like grade 2 in Melbourne held him back because he was about 6 to 8 months older than most kids. And this kid doesn't normally hang around with any kid less than 4 years younger than him. It's not my fault. It's just that most of my friends either don't have kids or they got kids that are like 9, 10, 12, 14, or he's hanging out with the boys. You know, there's not many kids that go...
It's going to make him level up pretty quick.
Oh, man, he's like the shit. Like, he doesn't... I always humble him. Like, we go to like Nitro or we go to Freestyle Kings and stuff like that. Like, we'll be in the crowd and then we can go on the floor and he gets to be with all the boys and he's in the change rooms and I remind him that I'm like, man, like you're lucky to have this.
This isn't normal.
This isn't normal. So don't brag about it at school. Like when you share shit, make sure you say it the right way. Like I don't want an arrogant kid. Like that's one big thing. I hate arrogance. But I always remind him, matey, like no one gets to go to 50. Not just every kid gets to go to 50, 60 and watch the boys practice all their jumps and all these new tricks, whether it's on the bag or whether it's on the down ramps or whether they're out there on the track with you, like helping you on the track. Like that's not normal. So don't take it for granted. Or when you're at Area 51 doing burnouts on tables and firing everyone up, like don't ever change who you are, but also stay humble. That's a big thing I'm really trying to teach him. And it's cool. Like it's teaching me too to be the best dad possible. And that's what I'm really proud of. And then being proud of that has made me start being proud of myself again and liking myself again. And the work that Chrissy's been doing with the energy healing, getting my body to flow again properly, getting me to believe in myself again properly, like the fact that my walking's gotten way better since she's been working on me, plus pushing her out there. And I want her to work on you because I think, like, I told her about you and straight away she didn't know about your injury. I just said, I've got my mate that you need to work on him. And she said straight away, she goes, I feel pain like around my mid-neck and like all this stuff. And I said, that's where he's having issues with. So like to have that kind of powerful people that work with shit that none of us understand, but it helps. Like I want to push that too and just say to people like there's always so many options we don't know about.
Yeah, be more open-minded to it.
Yeah, but you have to believe that it works too. Like you can't go lay there and go work on me and not say, okay, this is the energy going into me is helping my body flow more. And I explained it to my mate last night. And Chrissy, we're all out for dinner because we took her out for dinner with my mate Mitch, who's had a spinal injury. So him and his partner up here with their child at the moment, and he's doing rehab. And I was explaining because he asked what energy flow work is, and I can't remember how I said it, but I did it in layman's terms. It made so much sense. But it's basically your body's at war with a spinal cord injury. So what Chrissy does is she gets the energy to flow up and down because it's almost like static and it bounces everywhere. It doesn't know where to go. And it's like, oh, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. That's not working properly. So your energy's everywhere. Where what in my terms and how I interpret it, what Chrissy does and what other healers have done on me is it teaches your body to flow the messages up and down in a flow state. So then it helps everything start moving better. You can't be on a freeway, have a bunch of cars parked on the freeway and think you're going to drive straight and you're not going to have an accident or it's like, something's in your way. So what she basically does, it's almost like she frees that freeway up so then you can drive to your destination. And that's sort of what's happened with me so quickly, man. Like it's the best I've felt in probably 4 to 8 years.
And she's worked on you a handful of times now.
I think she's worked on me now. She worked on me last night. She worked on me the night before I was on Elle's podcast. And then she worked on me one other time before then. That's it, 3 times. Completely changed my life. Like I was, even when I caught up with you, bro, like I was in such a state, I didn't know what the hell I was doing still or like hard to hold a conversation. But it's crazy how much it's just changed everything. And I know where we are where we're meant to be up here. And that's what I'm grateful for. And like the other struggles or the work and stuff like that, that'll come. I just had to fix myself first. And my boy has been the biggest motivation because I would have quit months ago and gone back to Melbourne. It would have been way easier. So yeah, it's crazy how a little 8-year-old can teach you just to fight when you're the one trying to teach them to fight. And then actually they turn around and that's been my driving force.
Have you heard of the Midnight Gospel?
No.
It's it's a podcast and a show on Netflix. And on the last episode, he's got like an episode series. And on the last episode, he interviews his mum who's dying of cancer. And they do like a cartoon, like they kind of explain the story through cartoon as they're doing the podcast. And it shows like the life cycle of like he's born and then she looks after him and then she gets old and then he starts like teaching and looking after him and it just cycles around. Really highly recommend. It's the last episode, but just to even have those conversations. Like imagine interviewing your mum and she's got terminal cancer.
Yeah.
And talking, knowing that this is probably one of the last
chat you have.
chats you have. I'm not sure. I think she has passed away now, from when it was released. But the lessons that someone can teach you in those moments.
I definitely want to watch it. That'd be cool.
It's really, I highly recommend to anyone that hasn't seen it. But the whole thing, like you say, AJ teaches you so much. It's funny how you don't realize how much people teach you when they're gone, whether they've either like left through death or just left in general. But they teach us a lot when they're here, and even more when they're gone, or when you say even younger kids.
Yep.
I've learned so much from, and they're not even trying to teach you.
Yeah,
they're just from their actions and how they react to things.
And they pick up so much too, man. Like little kids pick up so much more than what we take for what we think they can. And that's, I'd love to check out that, because I think it'd be really cool for, I think, Mum and myself and AJ probably to watch, because he loves all that stuff too. But it's even like, you know, with the passing of J.O., it's like I'm so glad that my son got to be around him too, because my boy learnt so much from him, just how to carry yourself and the other boys too, but also like just what he got from him, and watching my little boy have a completely shattered heart while knowing that everyone else has shattered hearts for so many different reasons, and having to learn from that, but then also learning what he learnt from being around him, and being kind and going for goals and believing in yourself like all the other boys do, and to go up against stuff that that is dangerous and stuff like that, but believing in yourself and like I shouldn't have brought that up because it's probably still a bit too raw for anything, but yeah, just to learn from so many different people how to be better at life. There's so many people around us that we can learn from and be grateful for, and I'm glad that, you know, he got to understand that with him, but also with the other boys and with me, and like learning to be grateful for, and to be a better person, and to be grateful for the people that we have around us before it's, how you said, interviewing your mum when she's terminal, you know, getting to understand her probably a bit different to what he did beforehand, probably before that podcast and stuff like that. You know, it's
funny. I was talking to a friend the other day, and her partner is about to go to Europe for 4 or 5 months, and she's very analytical, and she worked out, okay, well, you're leaving in 2 months, and we work this much, so we've got this many days with each other, and she broke it down to like 16 days, even though like they live together, but they both work. They worked out we have 16 free days together.
Yep.
And I thought about that, and you never know how many days you have with someone.
100%.
Even people you see every single day, you don't actually know how much you actually have with them. And I kind of thought about that because I've obviously moved up here. I'm away from my parents and stuff and my grandparents, and I might go back down to Victoria maybe, I don't know, max 5 times a year.
Yep.
And you go, okay, if they live for another 5 to 10 years and you go down 5 times, like, am I only going to see my grandparents 25 more times?
Yeah.
And you break it down like that.
And that's why you got to be grateful for every moment you have with. I mean, it's hard because like you want to be grateful for everyone you got and have every bit of moment, but yeah, I get that because it's
the hourglass.
You don't want to waste the time.
The hourglass is flipped. There's always sand running through that thing.
Yeah, well, I got told that like be grateful for you'll probably only get 18 summers with your kid.
Yeah.
You know, and there was another statistic that someone said, and my brother was killed in a car accident 3 months before AJ was born, and we hadn't chatted for a couple of weeks, and we normally speak once a week, and I made the phone call, and I remember the last thing we said to each other was, I love you, and I'll see you in another week or two. And then I got the phone call the next day that he'd been killed in a car accident. And like, you know, I've lost a lot of friends. I lost 4 friends and a grandma in 1 year. And then to lose my brother was just like, oh, fuck, man, that just rocked me because like that was my hero. But I was so grateful that we both said I love you at the end, because then like we knew where we stood, because for some, I can't remember what it was over, but he thought that I was upset at him about something, and I thought he was upset about me for something, because I was on the road doing this talk tour, so I hadn't talked much, and I can't remember what it was about, but that's why I made the phone call. I'm like, bro, I don't give a fuck about anything. Like, I love you and you're my brother. So we had this mad chat for like an hour, and then to lose him the next day, like, I'm just glad that I said that with him, but it's just like you try to understand how you can make as much time with everyone, which is pretty hard. But as long as, like, when you do have that time with each person that you love, as long as you make it worth it, like, that's one thing I've learned from so many losses and big losses, especially young losses, is that we have to be grateful for who we are, and we have to sometimes put a lot of our bullshit to a side, because there's so many people that lose loved ones and stuff like that will never really feel like, you don't know when it's going to happen. And you can't always leave everything unsaid, but at least be grateful for what you have and that time. And, like, even if you only get to go to Tassie for those 5 times, I'll guarantee you make every time worth it, and do as much as you can with that person and be grateful for that person and stuff like that. But I'm still learning that too. Like, sometimes you hang out with people and you just think you're going to see them the next day, but we don't. Yeah. Or you think that you do this sport and you think that you're going to be sweet, and then you have a spinal cord injury.
Yeah, you don't know.
So, like, yeah, you try to always make sense of whatever loss, or as much as you can, and learn from it and make sure it's not in vain, for sure. And, sometimes it pulls people together, sometimes it doesn't. And I feel like with our injuries and stuff like that, we learnt who was true and who isn't. And we also learn a lot about ourselves too.
It gives you, we talked about it before, like that really good perspective shift. And I didn't even mean to do this, but when it wasn't long after the injury, I'm not sure if I was in a neck brace or out of it at this point, but I remember being at home and one of my housemates was complaining about something they were going through. And I just kind of came out, but I just said, well, at least you have a spinal cord injury.
I've said that heaps of times.
And it wasn't even like trying to take the piss out of it. It was just generally like, you don't have that. And they were like, yep, that's fair.
All right, I'm going to shut up now.
Yeah, and even the other day I was talking to a friend and they were talking about how all this stuff was going wrong. And to be fair, they were in a hard situation. I don't want to take away from that at all. But I just said to them, like, it's so simple, but like,
it's perspective.
You've got your health.
Yeah.
Like, you're fine.
Yeah.
Like, you're so fine.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was trying to say before, is just like, you hear people bitch about some of the smallest things. Like, you can throw your legs out of that bed and brush your teeth. You can shit and shower on your own. You don't need someone else to do it. You don't have to plan when you're going to go to the toilet. Like, even now, like, I have to plan when I'm going to go to the toilet. Sometimes it takes me an hour to go to the bathroom, and it's sort of like, then I'm like, hang on, I shouldn't bitch about that, because I've known too many spinal cord injury people that would love to be able to just go on their own to the toilet, so it's always putting it in perspective. Like, I might remind someone else to stop bitching because they don't have an injury, but then I also remind myself pretty quickly, stop bitching, because I know that my worst nightmares are someone else's dreams.
Yeah.
And that's pretty the best way you can put it, and that's how we have to live. And I think that I kind of lost that for a while, because I was listening to too much negative outside noise and questioning myself and becoming my own victim and becoming pissed off at myself and self-hating and stuff like that. And sometimes we all need that bit of a shake-up. And, like, I've got days where I'm just like, I can't be fucked. Like, I'm sick of being tested. And then I'm reminded by other mates with spinal cord injuries, and I watch their posts and they're so fucking happy, and they're like, they're going through shit. And you're just like, man, that really makes me want to be a better person and not take for granted what I have, because I can't even imagine what they're going through, and I've gone through that, but I wasn't stuck in that as long. I think I spoke to you about it last time when I was in rehab, and they pulled me aside and did a full family meeting, because they felt like I had depression and wasn't dealing with it, with my injury. And when they sat me in the room with the psychologists and the surgeons and the doctors, and I felt like I was on trial. And I'm like, I put myself here. There's a lady getting around here that was in a car accident. They were full driving, and she told her husband not to do that drive, and the car rolled and she came out of the car on like the 13th roll. Then her husband left her, and she's in rehab on her own with no family, paralyzed from the neck down, and she smiles and says hello to everyone every day. Who the fuck am I to be depressed and angry at myself? And like, I need to live for them. Like, I need to get better for them. I need to kick my ass for them. And then I turned around to the psychologist and said, so have you broken your neck before? They're like, no. I said, well, then how the fuck are you going to tell me how to live my life if you can't understand what I'm going through? I can't understand what she's going through, and she's smiling every day, and that motivates me. She has every reason to be angry and tell everyone basically to piss off that looks at her, but she doesn't. She smiles, she greets everyone, she stops for everyone. She always asks how their day is. And then you got the other side of other people that I was in rehab with that just bitch about everything. But that's like life. It's just on an extreme level. But she taught me so much. You know, like, she lost everything, man. And that wasn't her fault. Where at least the only way I could justify was at least I was doing something I loved. And it was my fault. And I could like I always say to people, I think that if I was in a car accident and I was a passenger, I think my recovery would have been harder. Because you wouldn't blame someone to be stuck in that anger state of like, you put me here. You're out there walking.
It's easy to be a victim. When,
yeah. And like, it was easy for me just to go, okay, I need to accept that I did this. Where I think it would be a lot harder to get out of that headspace if someone put you there. But that lady taught me that, and without even realizing she was teaching me that. And I hold on to that now to this day. And, you know, you watch so much bad shit happen these days, and you just got to remind yourself that life ain't that bad. It's how we make it, you know, and it is tough. It's not easy on anyone, especially these days. But, yeah, I definitely feel like I try to learn from as many people as possible and try not to be a victim. And some days you can have a day where you're just over it. You want to be angry, as long as you leave it at one day. Like, there's some days where I fucking hate myself and I lock myself away in the house and just, like, call myself all the worst shit. But I only let it happen for that hour or that day. And then the next day I'm like, all right, let's get over it. Let's move forward. There's plenty of people that love to have my problems. And that's just how I try to be now.
And like I said before, it comes back to that. You've like, we or anyone that is put into a situation like this, you get the opportunity to be able to be that person that can be a light to other people.
Yeah.
And without that hardship, without that kick in the face, people don't want to listen to people that haven't gone through it. Yeah. So if you've gone through it and come out the other side and said, hey, I did this, this and that, and look where I'm at now, like, people take notice of that.
Yeah.
Especially people that are going through a similar thing. So I always look at it makes the story better. And it's just like, okay, I've been dealt these cards and now I'm going to do this, and that's going to make the story better. Yeah. And like, at the end of the day, like, when your life's over, you want to have a fucking cool story, I find.
Well, you want people to talk about the good shit. And to have learnt from you too. Like, there's no worse a death than one that someone didn't learn something positive from you. And like you said, come full circle. It's also learning to be grateful with that person, or when they're still here and stuff like that too. Like what you brought back about seeing your family 5 times a year in Tassie and stuff like that. Like, be grateful for that time you have and what you learn from them now.
Because you don't know, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what helped me with my recovery too. Like, I remember when Dingo came in, I didn't tell him that I was standing. I'm like, that's a whole nother story of how I first stood, you know. And when I stood for him and I watched a piece of him go, okay, he's getting better. So he got better.
It's the relief.
And that relief, okay, he's not where he was, but he's a hell of a lot better than where he was. And, you know, that then it's a double-edged sword where it helps me and helps him, helps the family. And I'm like, go live your life. Like, some of my mates never snowboarded again after my accident because it was just too much. That's not what I wanted, and I felt really guilty for it. But at the end of the day, that was their choice too. But you always hold on to that guilt too, personally. Like, even 24 years later, I still have that guilt of, you know, what I put my boys through. Whether they feel that guilt still or not themselves, like, you hold on to it. You try to, like, not, but it still lingers there a little bit, that little dark little corner of your life. But yeah, it's crazy what we can learn, and we can't go through all this without trying to help others too. We can't go through losses without trying to help others and bring ourselves together more and try to put all our bullshit aside and try to help each other and stuff like that. And that's why I'm starting to put myself back out there again, because I got to a point where I was sick of always being known as Josh that broke his neck, but I kind of gone through all this just to not only come this far, but also not help more people again in one way or another. Because it also helps me too. Like when I go in there and have a connection with a family and normally it's a young person that I've been brought in to see, to watch that little bit of fire just go in their eyes, and like you see it. Like you've been around it so long that you see that little fire ignite. I've only just told them what they already know. I just had to find a way to trigger that switch in their head. And it's not about walking again. It's just about living again and knowing that your life's not over. Like I've watched so many people with spinal cord injury say their life's better because of it, because now they appreciate life more.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the same. Like I watched a documentary on Netflix the other day about that guy that did the big drop in, I'm going to get the mountain wrong, I know, but I think it was like Whistler or Blackcomb or something like that. And he broke his back snowboarding, and he went back and did this giant ledge drop like even most able-bodied people can't do, and he did it on a sit ski. And then I ended up watching all that, and just like he says, like the life I live like it's not the same and it's harder, but I appreciate it so much more on a different level than what I did before I had it. And I thought I already appreciated it because I was doing fun shit.
I think that's the thing, hey, the appreciation for and then you kind of go, obviously what's happened isn't great, but without it, I wouldn't be who I am.
Yeah.
And that comes back to, if you're happy with who you are, yes, you've had to go through some shit to get there, but at the end of the day, you're happy with who you are.
And then you get the right people around you too.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, I wouldn't know all the boys if it wasn't because of my accident. I wouldn't know what I know if it wasn't because of my accident for my son. I wouldn't know about real friends or being there for people that had probably gone through some shit without realising, because you've gone through that dark side on a different level to others. So you can either almost see people going through shit that maybe other friends don't, because they haven't gone through that just yet. And so you can be there for other people. And yeah, you definitely learn to live and appreciate life a lot differently. And it is hard. Like, fuck, man, I have days where I'm just like, I hate myself. I don't even want to see it in the mirror. And, you know, I hardly have any photos of me with AJ because I'm always on the other side of the camera. And so friends lately have been taking photos of me or videos of me with him. And I almost like hate seeing me struggle. But then I'm like, no, you have to be proud of yourself, because you didn't have that. And when you were lying in that bed, paralyzed from the shoulders down, I guarantee you that would have been a dream to look like that. So get the fuck over yourself. And I'm still trying to learn that now. And that's like with anything, that doesn't have to be just a spinal injury. It can be like, you watch the boys get so pissed off at themselves when they're trying a new trick, or when you've tried new shit and you get fucking angry. And just rewind back to that little kid 6 years, like when you're 6, you would love to be doing what you're doing now. We kind of almost get so used to that evolution that we forget about what it took to get to there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you put if I get this, I'll be happy. If I look like this, I'll be happy.
We're never happy though.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Action sports people are never happy.
No, because you get there and then you go, okay, well, next.
What's next?
Yeah, next.
But I think that's what also helps. And please, this is just from what I've learned and what I've seen, that most people that have some sort of recovery from this injury are normally from some sort of a sporting background. The Joe Blow that's never really done anything, that's probably done the same thing, done the same job, they've never had to really challenge themselves and get hurt and get back up and get hurt and get back up and hit a wall, and then make a breakthrough. Like most people don't on that extreme level like action sports people do, or any type of real athlete, like high-end athlete, have had to make so many sacrifices physically and mentally and emotionally, that I feel like most people that have some sort of recovery have normally had that kind of background, because you have to have that self-belief where you dig deep and know that it's not. But then you got the flip side where you get pissed off because you're not making it at your certain point, because you normally have like a time frame of where you're going to get shit done. And so it's getting that time frame out of your head and just knowing, okay, I just got to fight every day for something that I don't even know if it's going to happen.
Yeah. I feel like especially action
sports
athletes, they almost, you build up like you've got pretty much a degree in resilience.
Yeah.
and you've got to have that. And then I guess the injury on top of that is the biggest.
Well, you got something that's going to, it's never a small injury most of the time.
No, it's always massive. But even like you said, the scary part, you don't know if you will ever be yourself or even close to yourself again. That's the thing that tested me was, and honestly, before I got temperature in my body, I was like, I can't live like this. I can't live like this. I can't sleep. I can't have like a shower. I'd wake up 3 times a night, freezing cold with blankets and everything on me. And it was just that thing where I was like, I literally can't live like this. This is fucking torture. And then when I got temperature back in my body, and that was just one day, I just woke up and I was like, I can feel heat again. And when I got that, I was obviously still in pain, still not great. But as soon as I got that back, that altered a lot. It gave me more energy.
Well, peace of Dean comes back.
Exactly. And I was almost to that point where I was like, this still sucks, but I can probably live like this.
Yeah.
I could get day to day. Obviously, I was living like the other way, but it was just like I was a shell of myself.
But how long's it been since your injury?
I did it. I think it was October. Like it was either 29th of September or I think 29th.
Still, realistically, when you think about it, it's fresh.
Yeah.
Most people don't. It doesn't really. I feel it doesn't really hit a lot of people, regardless of the degree of injury, until about a year. You go through that year cycle, but because also you got to understand that you're still in spinal shock. You still probably have swelling in your spinal cord, and that can take a year. I'm not a surgeon. This is just what I've learned from what I've been through and what I've been told by some very high up people, that the swelling in the spinal shock can still take a year to 18 months. So like most people are going to have, okay, if I don't get this in a year, I'm not going to get it back. But like my whole point to what I'm saying is like I'm 24 years deep into this and I'm still getting shit back. And so it won't really hit you probably for about another 6 to 8 months when you come back around. And I don't mean it in a negative way. It's more like how far you've come. And that's why I always tell people that have this injury, like film as much as you can, take as much photos as you can, document as much as you can. And even if you don't look at it in a year.
Yeah.
Because we live with ourselves every single day, so you get used to yourself, injury or not. Even with one thing I want to learn about, like what I've learned through even just having the depression and stuff like that. You know, I didn't have suicidal depression, but I was in a really dark fucking hole where I didn't believe in myself anymore. And I had a little boy that believed in me, and I wasn't believing in myself. And I kind of almost wish that when I was in that really dark stage, I had have written more. Because I know that in a year's time, I'm going to reflect and go, fuck, man, you've come so far. And that's just a mental side of thing. And that's something that a lot of people probably listening can relate to, that they're going through a lot of dark shit. And if they can just document it now, be kind to themselves, build tiny little steps. Like my biggest goal was to walk again. I didn't think about walking. I got that out of my head. I had to think, how the fuck do I get to that walking part? Start from my toes, small steps, get to that level. Celebrate that level. Don't take it for granted. Don't sit on it. Go to the next level. Get to that level. And then next thing I know, I'm standing. Next thing I know, I'm walking. Next thing I know, I'm back on a dirt bike. Next thing I know, I'm back snowboarding. Next thing I know, I don't have a wheelchair anymore. Next thing I know, I don't have 2 crutches. Then it was no crutches. Then it was a walking stick. And then it was no walking stick for 18 months where I walked around Las Vegas Supercross. I walked around for 18 months. It was slower, but I walked around with nothing until my knee gave up. And then I went back on crutches, and then I got really pissed off at myself and down on myself. And then I'm like, hang on. You got to that point out of being paralyzed in a wheelchair, in a bed. Stop living in what you've just gone backwards with. Celebrate how far you've come, and know that you've come this far. You've gone through a lull. You're going to go to the next level again. And then I was on crutches for, I think, 6 months, two crutches, because I just couldn't hold my body weight anymore. And then I went onto the walking stick, and then part of me was like bits and pieces, and I never really have gotten 100% back to where I was. I think it was 9-10 years ago when I was doing AJ's 8, so it would have been like 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. I haven't got back to that stage. Like when I was bench pressing, I had incline press was 60 kilo on each side, and I couldn't even hold a pen. And then I was doing that. Like, there's not a chance I could even do probably 25 kilo now, but I know I can get back there. I've just gone through a massive life shift, and I can't say I've lost all of it. I'll get it back. I've accomplished it from nothing before. I can accomplish it again.
Yeah, you know you can.
But the hardest bit was the headspace. Like, if you don't have the right headspace, then, and I feel like that's what holds you back from your next bit of development. And that's why with me, before I started getting physio back and doing my talks again, doing podcasts again, and putting myself back out there again, I had to learn to believe in myself again, and I had to love myself again. I wouldn't say I'm a love, but I'm definitely a better than like. So, you know, I've improved a lot, and, you know, I've got a long way to go too. But I'm lucky I've got good mates, good family, good friends around me that support me too, that help me get to that level. Because there's a lot of people that have nothing or no one. And to get out of that is pretty tough. But I feel like platforms like this are perfect to help so many other people, because I guarantee there's going to be someone that's going to listen to this that hasn't broken their neck, doesn't have the spinal cord injury, isn't in action sports, but there'll be something that would trigger them to go, okay, I want to improve on myself in this way. And that's makes all of what we've gone through worth it. And that's what I've found is just if you can break through with one person, then a lot of it's worth it.
For sure. I totally agree with that. And you don't realise the impact that it actually does have on so many people.
Like, even I'm sure your mates that watched you go through everything, and then to see you in here doing this on your own a lot of the time when you're posting it, like, that would have made your mates so proud just to watch that. And you wouldn't even realise, and you'll just be like, oh, I'm just going to show them my progression of what I've done. People would have looked at it at a deeper level.
It's just like, keep showing up, man.
Yeah.
Keep showing up. This whole, it's like, okay, if something's hard's happened, okay, keep showing up. This happened, okay, keep showing up. It's like you get two options in those. It's like, be a victim, be a hero. Be a victim, be a hero. And it's like, be a victim for long enough, you're going to fucking hate it. Be a hero, you're going to feel great, and you're going to lift other people up.
I was a victim long enough in my own head that I got to a point where I was like, get the fuck out of this, dickhead. Yeah. What are you doing? You got a little boy watching you. You got all these friends around supporting you. A lot of them don't realistically understand. And exactly, be a victim or be a hero. And that's sort of when I woke up out of that next day where I wanted to kill myself or have my mum kill me because I couldn't do it myself. I was like, take responsibility or be a victim and just stay like this. And like, I used to talk to myself, are you going to stay like this or are you going to fucking get up? Because we can just chill and be emo, or we can get up and just kick ass, and we may not get it today, but I guarantee you we've gotten a little bit closer to it by trying at least. And whether that's mental or physical, I feel like that's, if anyone can get a message from us chatting, hopefully that can help people. Because everyone's going through, like, everything that's going on in this world right now, with even just the price of fuel, you know, like, or the price of rent, you know, like, we can go, oh, fuck, we've got to pay this rent again, or be grateful that you can pay rent. Because, like, you know, you see the tent cities that are out in Goldie now. Like, you see, like, in a lot of the trees, there's people living in tents because they can't afford it. And, you know, I'm sure those people were living in a house 2-3 years ago. You know, so I think, you know, it's not just about what we've gone through. It's about watching what other people are going through too. And I think feeding off that helps all of us in one way or another.
No, I totally agree. We're going to wrap it up soon. We've got some other people coming in and recording.
I'm going to go get AJ for school
as well. I was going to say, I normally finish on this question. But when you go on, how do you want to be remembered?
Probably someone that didn't give up on themselves. I feel like I want my boy to learn not to give up on himself and to believe in himself, because that's you realistically, that's who you need to be able to believe in yourself to get out of any type of rut. I always push AJ to just believe in yourself. And that's what I hope that if one day when I go, that people hopefully take from me, like, not to give up and to believe in themselves and know that whatever they want possible is possible. It's probably off the top of my head what I can think of. I'm probably come up with better shit in about 5 minutes when we walk out.
That's pretty good.
So, yeah, probably just believe in myself and that I never gave up, even at my worst stages, and stayed true to myself too. I think that's one thing when I do talks at schools, I always tell kids, like, who cares if you're different? You're better to be different than the same as everyone else. And, you know, I wish I was kind of more true to myself as a younger kid too. Didn't care about being different, and in whatever way that was. But yeah, being true to yourself as well, definitely. I'm trying to learn that.
And AJ's reminding you every now and again as well. Nah, awesome. Well, dude, I really appreciate that. We finally got it in the bag.
Yeah.
We have to get you back on, get AJ on.
I'll bring AJ on, mate. He'll have all the hard questions. So, what's your favourite colour? What toothbrush?
Maybe we'll get him to interview. We'll get him to host it.
Yeah.
We'll jump on the
See how
couch,
that
get him in
turns
the
out.
big C.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, bro. It means a lot.
No, I'm glad. It's good to have you on. It's good to, like you said, I always talk about this, but it's pain and hardship such a adhesive where it pulls people together. So I think when you can share in a way that shows, okay, you can go through something and then you can come out of it and be better, stronger, better. Better, stronger, bigger. Then other people can take that and use it as well. Yeah. And it becomes useful. So
no, thank you, bro. It's been good. It's been good getting my story out there because it's helping me get stronger as well mentally. And then having mates that, you know, whether known each other for 4 months or 5 years or 20 years, like it's crazy the connections you can make with other people. And, you know, you've helped me even just when we caught up a few months ago and just chatted, like that gave me that drive to get back into videography, just watching your passion, and then made me realise that I have that still in me and that belief. So I want to thank you too for that, and also the opportunity to chat because it's good. Yes. Finally getting it back out there again.
You want to be an example, hey? Like just live by example, yeah.
No, definitely.
For sure, brother. All right.
Thanks, mate.
Appreciate it, bro. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers.